Hello and welcome back. We're going to move on to the next section for importing CSVs. That's my favorite type of data structure. So CSVs are the most common way to save spreadsheets that doesn't require a paid program like Excel. This is what a CSV looks like. You'll recognize if you worked with data before. Now this is what it looks like underneath. Alright, so you can see the values are separated by commas. Therefore, that's why they're called comma-separated values. Okay. So to bring in data into R, there's a couple of options you can do that. So we're going to use this package called readr. First, make sure it's installed. I mistyped packages. I'm going to load the library up. Readr. So there are a couple of ways to bring in a CSV file. One is if you have a URL address. Install. So there are a couple of ways to bring in CSV files into R. One is if you have the URL address for it, and the other way. So there are a couple of ways to bring in data in a CSV format. One is if you have the URL address for it, and the other is if you have it stored locally. So I'll show you an example of how to bring in a CSV from a website. I'm going to go to and this is linked onto your in the walkthrough. But I'm looking at admissions to DMHAS addiction treatment. This looks like a Socrata data portal. I click on export, and I have a link for a CSV, and I'm going to right click it and click the copy link address and paste it into here. URL is this, and now I can type in data is, and the function to bring in a CSV from the readr package is read_CSV. And I just pass in the variable URL, which has the address to the CSV. So let's give that a shot. And that's it. There you go. That's how I brought in data from this particular website. I'll show you the base way to do it, which is read.csv, and I'll show you the difference. Alright, so let's take a look at the structures from between data 1, from the first data set we installed. And it says integer, character, integer. So what's the structure for data 2? So you see month, year, and town were interpreted by read.csv as factors. Sometimes you want that. Most of the time as a journalist you really don't. And it's easier to deal with months, years, and towns as characters, as strings. So let me just remove our data 2 because it's no good. And I'll delete these lines because we don't really need this in our process. And I'm going to save this into my folder, just for good practice, CSV folder, and I'll just say walkthrough. So now it's in the CSV folder where data and images are, in the proper CSV folder. Okay, another way to do it is to just download it, and I think I have it downloaded here. There it is. Let's see if I can copy and paste the file name, because it is kind of long. So I just copy that file name, local file, and call it that. Add.csv because it didn't bring that over originally. So local file is now that. Actually, is going to give you an error because watch what happens. Data local at read.csv or read_csv. And if I pass it local file, what's going to happen? It's not going to work. because it doesn't exist. And it gives you the address of where it's looking at, the folder. So it says desktop learn chapter 2 master. But the thing is, it's not there at master. It's master /CSV /data. So I need to adjust that. So local file, technically based on this, so it thinks the working directory, right, getwd, is there, but the file is a couple of folders deeper. So I can do that in local file by adding CSV data. That's technically where it's found. I'm going to make sure that's where it is. So now when I run local file, past local file to read CSV, it should work. It did. So now I have data local, and it matches exactly data, thanks to read_CSV. So you saw a quick way of how to deal with data that's not in the project working directory. Another way to do that is to set the working directory, change it up a little bit. So I can choose a directory here and find CSV and set it there. And then I can get rid of CSV, because let's see, getwd. I am now there. So now if I run data local, it's going to get an error because it thinks it's still not technically there. So I need to get rid of the CSV, local file, now it'll work, now it works. Okay. So if I set the working directory to not just wd, so if I added a /data at the end of it, then I would also need to adjust by removing this data in front of it. So, good concept to understand. So the way to export data, after you've played around with it, you've analyzed it, you've summarized it, is you can just use, instead of read CSV, you type in write_CSV is the function. So write CSV, and the name of the data frame, or the object, so let's say data local, comma, and then the file name. So we're in the CSV directory, and we want to save this file to the data directory. So let's say summarize data. So I need to move it first into the data directory. So I type in data / and then the name of the file that I want to save it as, summarize data.csv. Run that, and there it is. Now if I save this without the data subdirectory and just save that as a file name, this would save it to the working directory, which I scroll over to CSV. There it is, summarize data. Okay, so what happens if you have a data frame with a bunch of NAs in it, which sometimes happens? If you open this up later on in Excel, the NAs will be very prominent in your spreadsheet. And what often you want to do when you're exporting data with NAs is you don't want it to have NAs, because R understands NAs, but other programs like Excel can't. So what you want to do is, you want to add in a variable. I'll use this one with and pass NA equals blank. Okay? And that's how you can write that, when all the NAs will be replaced. You can also replace it with emojis if you want. I don't know why you would. Maybe it's easier to do a find and replace later on. It's up to you. Usually you wanted to save it just as blanks. So, all right. So we have gone over the various ways to import CSV files, and also how to export them for later use. Congrats.